Auto. People in America could not live without auto, and life was built around it. Auto could not live without petrol, and therefore auto was one more reason that everyone was at the mercy of the conglomerate known as Big Oil. For many, the sacrifice was worth it. Auto was not merely functional. Auto meant freedom, and people were hugely sentimental about their own auto. The alternative to auto was mass transit. Most people considered mass transit a terrible form of punishment. Subway was a dark underground manifestation of mass transit. In adolescent years, auto was often used in the service of mating rituals, which came to be known as having a sex drive. Later in life, auto became a business conveyance, but it retained a whiff of its former romantic purpose for the operator. Radio. Radio was inhabited by disembodied voices known as DJs. DJs filled the air with music and incessant chatter, like birds. Incessant is the key, for radio was inexhaustible, and some people became so accustomed to its company that they could not function without it, even in bed. Radio entered the god Auto and eventually became inseparable from him. Radio also entered headphones and turned people into Walkmen, later iPods, radio worshippers. The music on radio contained wild lamentations and chants to appease the gods, along with pounding, repetitive, hypnotic rhythms designed to numb the human audience. Some people said that the music was the sound of Satan, an ancient deity who represented evil and lived in hell, the underworld, a place like Subway. Few people believed that Satan existed, however, unless he was in charge of Subway. Lovers of radio, mostly the young, worshiped the lyrical and androgynous demigods who regularly dominated the playlist with music both sweet and jarring. The demigods had names like Who, Stones, Cars, Sting, Talking Heads, Madonna, Prince, The Boss, Tupac, Eminem, and Jay-Z. Sometimes these demigods appeared outside radio, in person, in what were known as tours. These tours attracted huge crowds and caused much pandemonium. Many young people would have done anything to touch a demigod or gain a special favor, such as a glance, a wink, or a silk scarf. A few, known as groupies, believed that mating with a demigod afforded one the pleasures of heaven and eternal bliss. Demigods were mortal, but one of them, known as Elvis, was popularly believed to have risen from the dead. In the late 20th century, a new form of DJ appeared known as the shock jock. They spouted political blather and claimed to be pundits. They were thought to have great influence in much the same way as TV was said to cause violence. Media. He was a fool among the gods, a jokester, a trickster. No one took him seriously, yet he was tolerated as an idle amusement. Media appeared in many guises, but was most powerful in TV. He or she, for media appeared as both sexes, called anchors, was easily recognized by its locks, which could maintain their shape despite great duress. Many believe that media, like the legendary Samson, gained its power from its hair. Media's idea of fun was to try and stir things up among the gods by spreading vile rumors and false tales. Fashion. Another prankster, fashion had almost as many followers as money, and they were equally fervent. All of the followers had the same ironic goal, to be a leader. They would try to use fashion, but fashion was an elusive god, a will-o'-the-wisp, evanescent and protean, also fickle and cruel, and it caused great insecurity and sorrow among its followers. Fashion was considered beautiful, but only in its latest incarnation. Old-fashioned was to be avoided at all costs. Worshippers of fashion were often seen wearing neck chains, multiple earrings, colored hair, and lips and eyes and nails. They also wore clothes with other people's names on them, often in plain sight. For their troubles, they only managed to look like people who were wearing someone else's clothes, a practice never favored by the sly god Fashion. Fashion also had a twin, Taste, sometimes called Style. He was rarely seen, though often courted. Labor. Labor was a drudge god, an ancient druid, the very opposite of the gay and dreamy Fashion, and an enemy of leisure. Most of the people in America wanted nothing to do with labor, including those who were in unions. The absence of labor resulted in an existence known as a lifestyle. It was at once joyous and full of anxiety. Labor finally lost its dignity and attraction to the point where women bearing offspring didn't even want to go through it. C-sections became popular, and then surrogates. Children were brought into the world without labor, akin to being born without sin.